I was having a chat with the abbot downstairs. I arrived very early today. So I haven't been reading a lot of news. So I was curious when I saw him taking out his phone and I asked him what's the hottest news now. So of course, the news is all about the war. One war replaces another and then another one gets replaced. I asked him what was his take on it. He said two wrongs doesn't make anything right. And if someone did wrong to you and you behave the same way back to them, then you're worse. You're worse off because you're already aware that what that person did was wrong. And if you were to reciprocate in a similar behavior, then it's worse, right? Double ignorance. That was what he told me about his take on things. And he also mentioned that during the Lunar New Year this year, he did say that there's going to be upheavals and wars this year. And he said that next year, there will be even more because of the Year of the Dragon. Which got me thinking, we are living in a very, very safe society. No one's getting bombed. It's very safe over here where we are. For those of you watching this recording, it's the same wherever you are. If you can have access to the internet to sit down, to even meditate, you're very safe. We're in a much more conducive environment, much more perfect environment for us to dwell in, regardless of what's going on in our lives. I think what we can gather from wars is that things are impermanent and sometimes things happen very abruptly. Imagine if you're in a war zone, what's going to happen? Wherever you're stressed about, maybe you're stressed about work, maybe you dislike someone, you have problems with someone, you don't see that person tomorrow. The next thing you know, your office just got bombed and the colleague that you don't like has died. And it all ended. I don't think we want things to end this way, right? So you also get us to think that sometimes there's actually no point harping on the things that we don't like, harping onto bad experiences in our lives. And especially for those we stay in Singapore, we are known to be a society that loves to complain. Or if you dwell in Singapore long enough, then you will be influenced by the Singaporean energy. And that is to complain, or become very competitive. Chronic complainers, that's who we are. And welcome to Singapore to be part of this interesting culture. So it's not just peace that we have. Sometimes our minds can go into war. We can be at war with things that we dislike, things that we disagree with. We can even be at war with emotions that we disagree with. Take, for example, someone triggers us and we start thinking, oh, I'm upset, I'm disappointed, I'm angry. You see, that's the emotion that, oh, you know what? Before you came into my life or before I spoke to you today, I didn't even have this emotion. I was peaceful, I was happy, I was going about my day. And now I'm stressed up because you caused me stress, right? These are conflicting energies that we're exposing ourselves to. We can't really prevent what goes on outside of us. But the same old mindfulness quote goes that we can learn how to respond, we can learn how to get in touch with our own safe refuge of mindfulness. You can use a breath, a mantra, a visualization, or anything, a certain part of the body, a certain posture, just to come back into ourselves instead of fighting. And what do we tend to fight with? We don't fight that much with people or with situations. We fight a lot with the narratives in our head. Much more than we fight with our emotions. That's interesting, right? We have a lot of stories that we paint around a certain scenario. There are many, many different stories that come up. And sometimes they crystallize and we start to believe them, especially when anxiety takes hold of us. We believe them so strongly that, okay, this thing must have happened. That person must be thinking this way. This is what's going to happen tomorrow. So that is war in itself. The mentality of war, the mind of war. We all have the seed of war within us. All of us have. It just depends on whether there are conditions around to allow us to nurture it. And what do I mean by nurturing the seed of war? And that's to allow it to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. So in a way, we are very safe because of where we're living in. The society, the law, the condition doesn't allow us to nurture it so much to become a real physical, violent action. The worst it gets is perhaps violent speech. And we can get away with it. And what do I mean by we can get away with it? Is because no one gets killed, no one gets punched. But if we are in a place of geopolitical turmoil, where in a way we are free to do whatever we want, to act the way we want, behave the way we want, then when we act, when we ride along the seat of violence, the energy of violence, of anger, then that's where we can't really come back anymore. Right? It's so easy to kill masses these days. A push of a button and that's it. You send a rocket flying, or you send a bomb off, or the squeeze of a trigger, you can take a life away very quickly. So when we reflect on this, we are not so different from people in war zones or people in places of great turmoil, because sometimes we do suffer from the seed of conflict, the seed of anger, the seed of disappointment, the seed of sadness, that when we can't control them, we start to battle with the narratives in our head, and then we lose a sense of ourselves. So although we might not be physically having an argument with someone, when we go to bed, we start to ruminate, we start to think of all sorts of scenarios, right? And at that time, some people say it feels like hell to live in that situation. This is what I don't like. I don't like this situation at all. I can't do anything about it. So which is great when you can't do anything about it, because you can't squeeze a trigger, you can set off a bomb. So there's one thing you can do about it, which is, I think, right in this present moment, is to realize that we have water to drink, we have food to eat, we have a comfortable bed. The building's not going to collapse at all. Get in touch with what is wholesome. Sometimes we ought to compare the luxury that we have right here and now, that some people just wish that they can enjoy. Yet we're taking them for granted because we're fighting within our heads. And so just enjoying, I have a nice pillow to sleep on. The air conditioning is working. Things like this. We want to get in touch. So being in touch with the present moment, being in the here and now, it's not just about being mindful of our thoughts. We can also be mindful of the positive and nurturing environments that we're in, that can nurture our peace, can nurture our sense of comfort, our sense of joy, that these things are all in place. The conditions of happiness and joy and peace, they're all here, right in front of us. That's waiting for us to get in touch with, to become one with. So we can start from there. Number one, comparing with the less fortunate. Number two, then you start to get in touch with what you have. Then the mind can settle. That's how we can get back into the present moment, just being here. And then when you dwell in that, you're already having a light of mindfulness, some sort of stillness, going into stillness, because you stop fighting with the mind. Then we can see very clearly that, maybe I was caught up in a certain thought. I was caught up in the emotions. And these things are happening outside of me, these emotions, because right here where I am is where I can learn to dwell in peace, dwell in clarity, and dwell in wisdom. That I can stay here. We can use a breath, a mantra, a light, or anything just to anchor ourselves, just being here. And just do nothing. Because as we know, we live through different mental states. They arise, they sustain for a while, and then they disappear. All kinds of phenomena. They're impermanent. When we grasp onto them, we start to amplify them. We prolong them, good or bad. The thing is that things don't last forever. Even good things, good feelings don't last forever. So when we cling onto very good feelings, then when they disappear, what's the other side? The lack of the good feelings, negative feeling, or neutral feeling that we're not used to. There's no highs, there's no lows. It's just like this. And sometimes we start to get itchy. We want to go and find things, thinking that we want to recreate, regenerate those feelings of high. So it's very important for us to note that there's a place of dwelling within us, and there's different mental states that fluctuate in our consciousness. And we need to know that they're impermanent. Of course, if you're feeling happy, I'm not saying deny your happiness. You want to acknowledge your happiness. You can enjoy along with it, but just know that it's not going to last. And that's it. And wouldn't it be terrible if good things were to last? Imagine watching your favorite episode of a TV series that you're going through and just watch it on repeat. It's going to last forever. No, that's bad, right? Or you enjoy a meal that you just ordered or you just prepared and you can never finish eating it. How would that feel like? Too much is not good. So we need to acknowledge even the negative feelings that come within us so we don't grasp onto them. We learn to understand first by applying the insight, the meditation of impermanence into it, the concentration of impermanence. These things are impermanent. They're very transient in nature. But there's also a place that you're dwelling in. You know that you're stepping back into yourself and you learn to stay there. And these things will stop having such a pull on you. When we are not mindful, we get put away by everything. Anything that happens, someone says something, something happens in your life, be it a high or low, we get pulled along with it. Just like the waves, they have highs and lows. They never stop. Now, what I want to cultivate is to learn to be like a very still lake. When it's very still, you can see into the bottom of the lake and you can reflect. You can reflect the trees, the sky, the clouds, just the way it is. But when it's moving, it's very murky. You can't see clearly at all. So we can cultivate our minds to that extent, bit by bit. Just learn to still it. So you see, I'm not saying stop thinking. How do we learn to still the mind? It's by recognizing and acknowledging that there are different mental states. We are not our mental states. We are not the narratives. We don't have to fight with them. We don't have to grasp onto them. And that's where we will, with that insight, the application of that wisdom, of the concentration of impermanence, it's how we can return into, I would say, sanity within ourselves. We learn to be here. So this is what we can get in touch with. It's very important for us. There's a place that we can come home to within each and every one of us. And the more you dwell on your mindfulness, your concentration, your wisdom, these three things, the more you have power over the mind, the thoughts, the different energies we're exposed to on a day-to-day basis. You start to see things clearly, how they arise, how they stay, how they disappear. And they can't pull us away so easily. And that is peace. Whatever we work on, we're trying to get peace. Just as sometimes we use the wrong methods, we use the wrong words, use the wrong kind of thinking that believing that you'll remove us from suffering and get us to ultimate happiness and peace. So the Buddha said it very clearly, these three things: Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sila, which is our mindfulness trainings on virtues, morality. Right? So they have the mindfulness, you have Samadhi, which is the right kind of concentration. And then the third one is our wisdom. These three things: Sila, Samadhi, Panya. In Chinese, it's called Jie Ding Hui. These three things. And that's all we need to cultivate in whatever situation we have. And that's our Dharma. We do it bit by bit, right? We don't try to become the Buddha immediately, right? Bit by bit. How's my Sila, Samadhi, and Prajna? How are they in this moment? We can reflect. And then we can do better. We can do better. Do better not to be a perfect human being and not to think about the grand idea of enlightenment, but do better so that we can have more peace.